Hey everyone, Adam here, So Wizard Podcast. I'm sitting down with Cody Renee Cameron to talk her acting career and her original YouTube series, which is awesome. Cody, how you doing?
So good. So happy to be here. This is our third time trying to do it, and we made it.
Yes, we had a couple scheduling and Wi-Fi issues, so I appreciate you hanging in there for us.
Woo!
Well, I guess I did have a question, which is kind of jumping the gun to your YouTube series. Were you traveling for the series on Friday?
Yes, last weekend. Yeah, so I have a series called The Iron Pony Show. It's out on YouTube right now. Our first season was kind of my Route 66 ride from LA to Chicago on motorcycles, filmed it all. And then now we're kind of just doing motorcycle adventure content until we gear up for kind of the second season, which is going to be up to this animal sanctuary where we're going to do a charity fundraiser thing. So yes,
cool.
This Friday I was in Palm Springs at the Paradise Road Show. It's a chopper and hot rod show. So lots of cool vintage motorcycles and cars. And it was so much fun.
That's awesome. Was the Iron Pony Show your idea? Was the whole thing your baby?
Yes. So during the strike, well, first of all, we had like COVID for 3 years and then the strike. And as an actor and entertainment industry person, I was just like, I'm so tired of sitting around waiting for people to give me permission to work, you know? So I was like, I'm just going to make my own thing. And I had wanted to do more motorcycle stuff. The furthest I had ever ridden was like 2.5 hours to like Big Bear, Santa Barbara. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a 10-day motorcycle trip all the way across the country because I'm crazy. And then I'm like, well, why don't we just film it all every day? And I gave us no days off in the schedule. So it was just 10 days of straight continuous writing and filming. But it was awesome. I learned so much and just saw so many amazing things. So it was very challenging, though.
That's really cool that you just dove in to do it. And it's funny because you say like a 10-day ride is crazy, but you're in Los Angeles. Like I feel like riding a motorcycle in Los Angeles is crazier than 10 days on the open road.
Actually, yeah, that's so true. Once we got out into like the open road, I was like, whoa, this is such a different experience than LA where you're kind of like weaving in and out of traffic. And I almost got taken out by a Tesla the other day. And I was like, out of all the things I have survived, if I get taken out by a Tesla, I'm going to be really mad. Like, I'm going to come back and haunt some people for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So the show, the way it's done, the production quality, it looks like a TV show. Like, it looks like those old cruising shows that they used to have. I'm not even sure the network, the Speed Network, maybe. I'm not even sure. Yeah. But it looked great, and it had a really fun editing style that was kind of the YouTube editing style, but also kind of the more classic programming style. Or how involved in the editing process are you?
Well, first of all, we wanted to have that travel show feel. We kind of modeled it after Norman Reedus' Ride. And, I'd seen Ewan McGregor's The Long Way Down or On the Way Down. He has a couple now. But, I kind of just had this travel show idea. And then and we wanted it to look super professional because we wanted to pitch it to TV networks like, hey, here's a sizzle. Look at what we can do with 2 people. Imagine what we could do with a whole camera crew. And it's funny because the feedback I've been getting is that it's, nobody wants travel shows. We want like follow shows, which is more like reality TV. So more like actually like shaky camera, but like kind of following and catching the moments in between everything, which was so interesting because we were so careful with setting up the cinematography of like, okay, this business owner interview is going to go here because it looks really cool. But really, we should have just been like sitting down, like chowing down around the table, like kind of just turning the camera around. So that was a crazy learning experience. But one of my best friends is editing it for me. So I hired her. Also, she's an actor. We were in acting class together. And the same thing where it's like, okay, what else can I be doing? Because it is so hard to do what we're doing when the world keeps shutting down. So we had a bunch of meetings and went over ideas. And then I started laying out outlines for her because she wasn't on the trip. Like it'd be so different if she was on the trip and then editing it. But we have to, kind of do all this other work to show her the vision. But she just gets it, man. It just like clicks for her and she will hand me back an episode and be like, here's what I did. What tweaks do you want to make? So very involved in that way, but I'm not actually the one like cutting and paste the things because I do not understand Adobe Premiere or whatever she's using. It's wild. Editing is like a beast.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, and for a while I thought I was editing video, and it's like, no, you're just cutting out the dead spots. You're not editing anything.
Yeah, okay, I can do that. I can cut out dead spots all day.
The show, when your episodes, how planned, maybe that's not the right way to put it, but it seems like, okay, we have the establishing shot and the travel shot, and then, you know, you on your bike passing your cameraman, or it all looks very like you have it storyboarded or something, or are you just combing through so much footage that you get to boil it down to that?
Kind of both, because there is so much footage, but because we all came from a TV and film background, we knew like we're gonna get really bogged down. So we have to make a plan. So we have like a super thick production binder, and every single gas stop was planned out because my bike only gets 100 miles per tank. And that can get a
Yeah.
little shaky, like going through Texas and Oklahoma and stuff. So um, we had kind of a loose, like a skeleton basically. And then as we're on the road, the meat starts to happen because, you know, we would be at a random gas station and then all of a sudden this 1948 hot yellow, electric yellow Corvette would come up and these two dudes would be getting out and the engine was smoking and we're running over there like, oh, what can we do to help? You know, and our follow guy Dave is pouring water on the radiator and we were like, don't do that, you can't pour cold water on the radiator, but that's what they wanted us to do. But anyway, just these, and then we got to like hear their story, and turns out like this guy that looks like Willie Nelson, who's like the sidekick in the car, raised all this money to create this like dog park in his hometown, and just it was so cool like hearing stories along the road. And that's the kind of stuff, those were the gems, and that stuff you can't plan, but you do kind of need like a loose outline so that you're just getting from point A to point B safely and making sure you have those shots. Because yeah, it would be like every time we needed to like have a takeoff shot and a landing shot. And so, you know, my cameraman Jigger, so he's like riding ahead of me to get planted and then trying to like scope it out. And he's on the Cardo, the communication system, telling me, okay, so you're going to pull in here and then go up to this spot. And it was, so we did when we were making the schedule, we should, the longest riding, if you were in a car, it would have only been 4 hours, like from point A to point B. But because we're riding motorcycles and stopping for gas and filming, they're 10-hour days. So that was wild. And then at the end, I was like, we have to drop all of the footage. We had, I bought an iPhone 13 just to film on, like for YouTube. So it's this way, right? And then I have my phone that we're filming vertically on, and then Jigger's phone, and then our follow guy, we called his phone B camera. And then we have the Insta360 on the motorcycles. So we're dropping and categorizing all that footage at night at the end of the day, which is another at least hour, 2 hours. So
Oh yeah.
it was such a huge undertaking when I like think about it now, but in the moment you're just in the zone. And I think coming from the TV and film background where we're used to working 16-hour days, we're just like, okay, this is what we do, you know?
Yeah. So all that was shot on just phones? Well,
Yeah.
the Insta360 you said, which I'm guessing is kind of like a GoPro type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. iPhone 13, 14, I think another 13. And then Dave had an iPhone 8. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? I would have gotten you a phone because you can. It actually, he has such a good eye. Like a lot of the establishing shots, especially he would go out when it was still dark out, set up his phone on a time lapse, and we'd get like these beautiful sunrise shots. And I'd never worked with Dave. Like Dave's just like our buddy, so I'd never really worked with him in that capacity. And he does music, so I didn't know how good his footage was going to be. But we used so much of it, and it was just crazy. Even the iPhone 8 was pretty good. But then when you put it up on like a big screen TV, you're like, oh, I can totally tell iPhone 8 versus like the 14 footage.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
just adds to the uniqueness of the show, I guess.
That's really impressive too, because I would have guessed you had like a support truck and like here's your 4K cameras following you, and it looks really good.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that it came off that way. Also, we got these like $300 DJI mics right before we left. We had another editing friend that was like, you have to do sound. You're going to be so mad if you don't. And there's a couple shots where we like, again, we're just on the fly trying to like follow people at gas stations when we have like organic conversations with no mics. And you're like, oh my God, you can't hear any of this. So we're like throwing up captions and stuff, but we made it work. But I'm so glad we like listened to so many people that gave us advice to just make it better. And sound obviously was a huge one of those.
Yeah, and it has to be, like you said a couple times, all of your time and your crew's time on sets and just doing the work on both sides of the camera had to be huge, because I mean, that is your first season. It's amazing you had everything as organized as you did, and it wasn't like, well, by the third season we'll figure it out. Like, it's already a polished show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. And now we're calling it this little series mini motosodes. So they're kind of like mini single interviews. So we just at Paradise Roadshow, obviously there's a bunch of like female bike builders. So I like grabbed some of them and did interviews. And the first one was with Becky Goebel, who's co-axle online, very well known in the biker community. She's such a badass. And so we do this interview, and like the whole time I'm like, oh, it's going so well. And I have this time I was able to bring my editor and her girlfriend as a production assistant. So now we've got actually like a whole team, and Kate is like holding the bounce. So we've got like amazing lighting. And now because there's so many of us, people are stopping and like they're filming us because they're like, oh, what's going on over here? Like now we're kind of a scene, which was so different than when we were filming originally. So that was cool. But yeah, first time doing kind of a mini interview. And then now we like put the episode out and I'm like, oh my gosh, I never introduced myself. The closing is really awkward. Like we had this idea where we're like, oh, we're going to throw like our sticker up there and then it's going to like bounce into the logo and editing. And we're like, oh yeah, that didn't work. So I'm actually so excited to see the evolution, because when you watch a pilot on TV, you're like, oh, this was so awkward. The characters weren't quite there yet, you know, as opposed to like in season 10 when everyone's like so dialed into their personalities and like their sayings and everything. So yeah, it's just been such like I love talking about it. So it's been such a fun adventure.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I was I don't ride myself, but I am into muscle cars. You know, the whole, like the car culture, the bike culture, there's a lot of overlap. So it was really cool to watch one of those style travel shows that, as far as I know, they don't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, like you mentioned a couple that inspired you, but.
Yeah, no, exactly. People want like the drama now. So there's all this like kind of fake drama as opposed to just like, hey, we're going on this adventure and come be with us. Like we wanted to film it like as if you were there with us, you know.
Yeah. It's also nice just to watch you having actual fun with your friends. Like it's pure, it's legitimate.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then that was another thing. Watching it back, I was like, oh, I wish the moments where I do get to show like Jigger and Dave in the videos, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much more fun when my friends are there. So let's do more like friends in the shot. But then it's like, who's holding the camera? But at Paradise Roadshow, because there was more crew, I got to like do a lot more shots with like my girlfriends that were there and stuff. So like, yeah, I feel like when I watch TV, I'm like, oh, that's what I like to watch. So let's do more of that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it looks like, I mean, I didn't like dive into your analytics on YouTube, but it looks like you do have people following and watching and some steady growth. So it's really good.
Yeah, that was another thing is I was like, oh, I had been avoiding the YouTube game for so long because it's like I got into Instagram really early. Like I have 500,000 on Instagram, and to go start a brand new channel, which was also long form. So I do short form. This is long form. And then it's filmed, you know, horizontally versus vertically. So now none of my old footage will work. Whereas like, you know, TikTok, Instagram, you can kind of repurpose things and whatever. So I was really nervous to take on a brand new platform, especially knowing that it's a very slow burn growth game there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we are, you know, it's like, we'll put up a video and we'll see like, oh, 100 new subscribers. So it's just that slow burn. But yeah, it's you're so grateful for every single comment, like every single view matters. So thank you if you're out there watching. I appreciate it.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, we could probably do the full interview on this, but you've also been in some really awesome TV shows and movies. And I kind of did it backwards, where I was going to build up to Mayan's MC, which would segue to the motorcycle thing. So I guess we can go backwards. What got you into acting in the first place?
I always knew I wanted to work in entertainment, but I just didn't really know what that meant because I'm from like a small southern town, and all there is like sports and hunting and fishing and church. And so I saw Cats the Musical on VHS in junior high, and that was like kind of my first exposure to like the arts. At least that's how I remember it. And I was like watching these people as cats dance on my TV. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want to be that. So for the longest time, I thought I wanted to grow up and be a cat. But turns out I just wanted to be a performer because I love making people laugh. And I love, you know, not everybody, like with the travel show, not everybody gets to go out and experience that. Like even in LA, we can ride motorcycles year round. Well, if you're sitting in Illinois, like you can only ride, you know, a couple months out of the year. So then I feel like people get to like kind of experience life through watching what we're doing. Like I feel like, come on, friend, like sit on the back with me and let's go on an adventure. So yeah, I just love working in the entertainment industry.
That's cool. How did you kind of get your foot in the door? You say you came from a small town with no industry. Did you have to relocate to LA or New York straight away? Was there like something more local you could do to start?
So I went to college in Champaign at the University of Illinois, and I was working at Hooters, and that's where I kind of started like modeling a little bit. Mind you, I was like a super ugly duckling. I went to the Illinois Math and Science Academy for high school. I had braces, acne, frizzy hair. I was always like that skinny, awkward kid. And then that like, I don't know, I got the braces off and my skin cleared up and I had kind of big boobs and I was like, oh, I'm like, people are like giving me a lot of attention. So anyway, fast forward to like, I went into Hooters and I was like, can I get a job here? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, they don't know that like a year ago I was hideous or whatever. I don't know, whatever these stories we tell ourselves are. And so I started working there and then they had like the Hooters pageants. So I like entered that, and my first year I got like second. Actually, my first year I didn't place. My second year I got second runner up. So that was like a little taste of like, oh, the modeling world, the pageant world, entertainment, doing the catwalk or whatever. And so I was like, I love this. I really love this. And I got scouted to do Playboy while I was working at Hooters, which sounds so cliche. But the photographer was an alma mater and was back for like, or U of I was his alma mater, and he was back for a football game. And he was just happened to be eating at Hooters. And he was like, I never do this, but here's my business card. Come to Chicago. Let me shoot you. We'll submit the photos. And I like took a risk. And I was like, I'm either going to get murdered by a machete in the city or I'm going to be a star. And yeah, I went. He submitted the photos. And 24 hours later, we had a call from Playboy saying, hey, we'd love to shoot you. It's back when Playboy had their Enterprise building in Chicago. So I got to like drive up to Chicago. And it was like getting my hair and makeup done, and we shot in this like mansion in like Lincoln Park, and it was so cool. But yeah, that was my first time ever shooting nude, and now there's like all these strangers around, and I was so shy. But and I think the pictures are like hideous now, like looking back at them. I have so many better photos than the ones that ended up in those magazines. But yeah, that was kind of my like first like real job, and then I graduated and I moved to LA, and I knew like same thing. I knew I wanted to be in entertainment, but I didn't know what. So I was doing kind of all these odd jobs. And then I started taking an acting class. And actually my acting coach was like, my first session, he's like, I don't want to take your money. He's like, I don't think you can do this.
Oh, yikes.
You're so bad. He's like, I don't know if I can help you. But in that instance, coming from the Playboy world really hurt me because I just thought like, hi, I am Cody Renee Cameron and I'm so hot. And they're like, that's not how people talk. And I'm like, no, it is. Like, that's how I've been trained to like kind of put this thing on. And then I like started to learn that acting was about taking off all of the armor. And it's like being so vulnerable, so authentically yourself. And that took me freaking years, like years. And I had to lose the fake hair and the fake eyelashes and the fake tan to really like discover like who I really was. Which turns out I'm just like this quirky motorcycle chick, which was so different than what I thought I was. Yeah, and I booked my first job, union job as embalmed female corpse for the Neon Demon, directed by Nicholas Refn, who had just won for Drive, for directing Ryan Gosling in Drive. So that was such a huge deal. And we shot on in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which is an iconic place in Hollywood. And I got to ride my Harley up to set to my trailer. It was my first time like having my own trailer and sit in hair and makeup next to Elle Fanning. And I was just like, what is my life? This is so, I've made it. But little did I know that was just the beginning of like, you've barely scratched the surface of anything. But that felt like a big win. And then from there, it was like, once you have one credit, then it's a lot easier. It's just getting your foot in the door is so hard because there's so many people trying to do it. And why would we take a chance on you? How are you different? You know?
Yeah. That's a really interesting trajectory where it's it seems like it was more of a mental game for you than anything. Not to put words in your mouth, but just you're kind of hard on yourself, and then you got the job where you're starting to get some confidence, and then the modeling shoots worked out really well, and then someone even told you this isn't for you, and you're like, no, I think it's for me, and you just kind of it's really cool that you just it was just like an internal let's keep going.
Yeah, anybody that works in this industry in front of camera has to have whatever that thing that we're talking about is. It's just like no fear of rejection, or I mean, maybe you have the fear, but you just like you run towards the fear instead of away from the fear, because for every yes, you probably have 99 no's.
Right.
You know? But yeah, you definitely have to be like tenacious to be an actor, and so many people will tell you no and you can't do it. And my favorite insult, because people don't even realize they're doing it, is when they say like, oh, what do you want to do if this acting thing doesn't work out? Okay, well, that already tells me that you don't believe in what I'm doing. So, like, that's cool. Or my favorite is like, oh, so you're an aspiring actress. That's really cool. And I'm like, I don't know if aspiring, maybe aspiring when I was like 15, but now, no, we're doing it. We're making a living.
Yeah, you're there. You're in things.
But that's cool. That's cool, guys. However you want to classify it.
To start with, like, Neon Demon with such a big name director is really cool. Is that what led to the Breaking Bad sequel movie? And then you got Mayans MC, which was really cool. Then you did Bill Burr's latest movie, which is really cool.
Yeah. It was I feel like my career will get some momentum. So the Neon Demon was that after I was like on fire. I got an agent after that and everything. And then the world will shut down and it like stops all of that. So
I guess the timeline, yeah.
But I think I had Breaking Bad before the pandemic, and I thought that was going to be a huge trajectory, and then the pandemic, so everything shut down. And then I got Mayans, and I think I've done 3 episodes, and then the strike. So it's like every time I get a little momentum, everything seems to crumble down. But the crazy thing about working on such a big set as my first union job was, you don't really know how to behave exactly, like what's normal, what's not normal. And I have this embarrassing moment where I had like asked the AD, I had emailed him because Keanu Reeves was on the movie, but we weren't on the same day. And Keanu Reeves is like my childhood crush. And also I say this in every interview, so I feel like eventually it's going to get back to him. But he's so awesome. He rides motorcycles and he's so cool. Also, I did not fall in love with him from The Matrix. It was when he was in The Replacements, and he plays like this underdog football guy, and he falls in love with the cheerleader, and I was like, oh, I love that. But he was so
I was
cool.
going to guess Point Break, but The Replacements is a good one.
Oh, Point Break's a good one too, though. Yeah. So I asked the AD, and I was like, hey, so I know I only worked today, but I was like wondering if I could come back on and just like hang out on set while Keanu's here. And they're just like, no. And I was like, oh, okay, no, that's cool. That's cool. If you like change your mind, just like let me know. And now I'm like, that's so embarrassing. Like, why would you ask that? That's like so crazy. But
do you think if you worded it like, I want to be on set to lend a hand or anything else and not mention the star showing up, they would have been like, yeah, sure, come on down.
Well, again, on these like giant sets, no, not really.
It's just too many people.
They're just like, no, that's weird. Why would you do that? Also, because people are very much like, okay, you're an actor, so you can only do actor things. Don't pick anything up. Don't touch anything. Don't fix your hair. Like,
I didn't think about that. All the unions have their own spot, so you can't step on anyone's toes.
Yeah. Whereas if you were on an indie film, they'd be like, girl, come every day. Like, can you bring the coffee? Like, what, whatever. Well, you want to learn how to direct? Come stand behind here. Like, it's a lot more like of a learning, hands-on, everybody teamwork environment. And this is very like strict, and which I get when you have, these big names on there and stuff, and a lot of money invested,
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense when you put it that way. As an outsider, didn't think about all the angles.
Yeah.
Have you worked on a bunch of indies you had a good time on?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at my IMDb, I would say it's like 85% indies, and then the rest is like network. They're so different. And actually I've been associate producing indie films recently with Full Moon Features and now with Churchill Productions, and that's really cool because again, I'm like I've created my own travel show, but that kind of works differently than like film. So I just kind of want to learn everything. So it's been really cool to kind of just work more behind the scenes and just kind of see how things work that way. Especially like for me right now, I'm like in fundraising mode too. Like we had sponsors for our first ride and we're working on sponsors for our second ride. So I'm like, how do these how do you get the money? Like how do these handshake deals happen, you know? Or like how are you negotiating on an indie budget? How did you get this amazing location? You know, when I know that you don't have a lot of money, you know, what are the conversations happening and stuff? So that stuff is so interesting to me too, as opposed to like just being like the cute face in front of the camera.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The job of would it be the executive producers like hands on every day?
Yeah, the producers, exactly.
Yeah. That does sound cool. I feel like for your show, Apple should be writing you a check with all the iPhones you're using.
Right? Right?
They used to do
I
those commercials actually shot on the iPhone. It's like you have a whole series now.
Yeah, great idea. All right, I'm gonna write up a pitch.
There you go. That's awesome. Is there anything in the hopper you can talk about right now?
That's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's an indie film called Waxman, and it's a horror, and their idea is that it's gonna be like a continuous horror. But this will be like the first one of its kind, and I'm associate producing and starring in that one. We're supposed to shoot at like the end of February, but you also never know. I thought like once the strike was over, I thought January would be so busy for everybody, but like still nobody's working.
That's
I guess like this is just like entertainment jargon, whatever. But like, so I guess the Teamster contracts are like coming up in a few months. So I've heard that like the producers are kind of just like, oh, well, we don't want another strike and da-da-da. So we're just kind of going to wait another 4 months before we really start doing stuff. They're just like starving us out, but, you know, no big deal. But, so I have that coming up, hopefully sometime soon. And then I feel like there are I've had some really awesome auditions lately for shows like SWAT and CSI and, I really like doing the network stuff, just because those credits kind of can boost you a lot. Like indie's really fun, but network is kind of what like brings you up to the next level. And so I've had the same casting directors keep bringing me in, so that's a really good sign. They're like, we like you. We're trying to figure out where you fit. Maybe you weren't good here, but we'll bring you in for this. And so. Yeah, hopefully one of those lands soon. I keep going out for those, so we'll see.
That's really cool. Those are massive, massive shows.
Yeah, and they just keep going. So you're like, oh, if you could land a part, and then you just like keep being in it. So cool.
And I would have to imagine when you walk onto one of those sets that have been going forever, like it's got to be such a well-oiled machine that there's like no questions. You're just there, you do your thing, and.
Yeah, working on Mayan season 5 was so awesome because you walk in and first of all everyone's like friends already, you know, and like that particular show the cast and crew like all meshed really well together and they had like this respect, you know, and then they just work so fast because you can kind of predict what everybody needs and what's going to happen next. So everyone a well-oiled machine. I couldn't have said it better. Exactly.
Was there any, I mean, I know you are an actress and you're doing a motorcycle show, but you're doing a show with motorcycles, so I have to ask, was there any kind of crossover or they knew your interests and you'd be a better fit even if you're not one of the Mayans MC?
Yeah, so I was wondering that when I got cast, I was like, oh, I wonder, you know, if that had anything to do with it, if they had like looked at that kind of materials from me. And because I was the bartender, which I have always bartended, so I love those auditions because you can kind of create this whole world, even though you might just say one line to the camera. It's like, I'm over here like cleaning the glass. And then I like glance over here to the guy who's always annoying me. And then I glance over here and wink at the guy who flirts with me. And then I come and I like deliver the line, you know, like you kind of get to create this whole world. And because I feel really comfortable in that world, I get to like play a lot. And I think that's why I book a lot of bartender roles. But I came in as a bartender for the Sons of Anarchy bar. Because the Mayans have beef with the Suns, obviously. And then, so while I was on set a few times, I got to talk to the showrunner, and I was like, hey, like, just so you know, I ride motorcycles if you ever need some, like, female motorcycle riders. He's like, no way! And then, of course, I already had, like, my video up, and I was like, oh, yeah, look, here's me doing it. And he's like, oh, that's, like, so cool. We are actually introducing a female motorcycle riding gang this season. We would love to, like, try to use you, maybe as like a stunt double or something if we can. And then he's like, but I think we also really want to like, they're talking about spin-offs since like the Mayans ended now. They want to give like, maybe Jax Teller's son gets a show, or the female writers are going to get a show, or like, who else can we give shows to? So hopefully they go with the female motorcycle riding gang, and then I can like, weasel my way in there. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
that'd be
there's
great.
just not, there's obviously not a lot of like female motorcycle riders around at all, let alone working in the industry, let alone like tiny ones. If we want tiny ones, I'm only 5'2", I weigh 95 pounds. So I feel like I've got that demographic on lock.
Right. If they're looking for that, you're the one to go to.
Yeah. If you need child riders, I got you.
That's awesome. And you did mention, I know we're kind of at the time, so hopefully I'm not keeping you.
No.
Okay, great. You mentioned stunt work, and I think on your website it said that you did you had like a bunch of interesting skills aside from just writing and acting, like stunt work. And I think, was it violin or viola?
I play the trumpet and the guitar.
Trumpet. Sorry, I was white.
That would be cool. I mean, now I want to learn. Yeah, so I double for Girls on Bikes a lot. That happens because a lot of girls will lie about parts, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I ride a motorcycle, and they get them on set, and maybe they do have their motorcycle license or something, but riding for a set is completely different than like riding just on the street from point A to point B. You're having to do a lot of takes and like possibly like hit marks, or like, go to a certain place and turn around and avoid hitting the camera. So it's like precision driving is completely different than just driving on the street. And if you've never done it before, and you're also trying to be the actor, like that's a lot of work. And that's why they bring in stunt doubles. So I'll get a lot of like last minute calls, being like, oh, so-and-so said they could ride. It's not really working out. Like, okay, I'll be there. And I always have to ask how big the bike is though, because I've gotten to set where I like can't touch the ground. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to like, you can kind of, you can start moving, and then with your kickstand down, and then as you move, kick your kickstand up. So it's like, I'm not going to be able to touch the ground, but I can get her going.
How do you stop? You just got to lean?
Yeah, you stop and then put your kickstand down and then kind of like fall over onto the kickstand.
Oh, yikes.
Or like you have people there to catch you if it's that kind of thing. But yeah, it's very exciting. You never know what you're going to get with stunts. And I feel like walking on set as a stunt performer is totally different the way people look at you than if you walk on as like the young hot actress. Cause yeah, I've done like a lot of like stripper roles. And so a lot of times there, you're like, you got your like big hair and makeup on, you're walking around in your robe and your little heels. And it's like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, like, where do you dance at? I'm like, no, I'm just playing a stripper. I'm not actually a stripper. In my living room. Not that there's anything wrong with being a stripper. Obviously, I love strippers, but that's just not what I do. And then you walk on as a stunt performer, and they take you a lot more seriously. Obviously, like, oh, this girl's about to like get lit on fire. Like, what do you need? How can we help you? Like, how can we make you feel safe? It's just like a completely different experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's very cool. Well, Cody, I mean, like I said, we could talk about your YouTube show for like a full hour because I think it's awesome. I don't want to keep you all day though, so I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for hanging in there with the scheduling mix-ups.
No worries. It all worked out. This was so fun. Thank you for having me. Yeah, that was great.
Absolutely. Anytime when you got one of your indies coming out or you want to talk about something, hit us up. We'll do it again.
Heck yeah.
Sounds good. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.